Hey guys, Romanian Reaper here. So, I've just got done watching G20 on Prime Video. This is directed by Patricia Regan. And look, let's be real. My expectations at this point for streaming original movies are pretty low because, let's be real, a fair amount of them, especially the bigger budget genre fare, are, well, absolute shite. See recently, Netflix's $320 million turd, The Electric State. But I had some level of hope going into this one, mainly because it starred Viola Davis and Anthony Starr, two actors I like very much, so I had my fingers crossed that their talents would translate. But does it actually deliver a reliably entertaining actioner? Let's find out. So the film follows Danielle Sutton, the President of the United States. She and her family have headed out to South Africa for the annual G20 summit, where 20 world leaders have gotten together to discuss a highly controversial Together policy. However, before the summit can actually get going, a group of terrorists, led by a man named Rutledge, storm the event and take all the attending leaders hostage, with plans to sink their currencies and put it all into crypto, which he believes will not be monitored under the new policy. And so, it is up to President Sutton to put a stop to Rutledge's mad plans. I know you're probably looking at that premise and thinking that this just sounds a bit like Die Hard, and you'd not be wrong in thinking that. The beats are there. You've got the terrorists taking hostages, the plot that has global implications, and you've got the hero who's at the wrong place at the wrong time and is the only one that can put a stop to it. But, to be honest, as Die Hard knockoffs go, it's not terrible. In fact, as streaming original movies go, it's not terrible. In fact, there's enough here that you could probably have a reasonably good time with. Now, let's be real, let's get the obvious out of the way. The story, it obviously owes a fair debt to Die Hard. There's the structural similarities and derivative beats are there. But and let's be real, you'll probably be able to guess exactly how most of this goes, but it's an entertaining enough ride regardless. I mean, it starts out promisingly enough with, our villain Rutledge on a mission to retrieve a crypto wallet. From there, it downshifts a gear a bit, and it gets into slightly rough, cliche-heavy territory where, you have all these scenes of President Sutton struggling to bond with her teenage daughter. Yeah, it's a pretty mawkish subplot. But yeah, the outcome of it you'll probably be able to guess, and it means that it does sort of struggle to to keep you on its side. But once it actually gets to the G20 summit, it gets onto much stronger footing and becomes a very entertainingly staged game of cat and mouse. Obviously, yes, there's the global stakes of its plot, which do keep things gripping and entertaining to watch. Very much keeping you on the edge of your seat, but also has some very well staged action scenes. Whether it be President Sutton's escape from the crisis or even an elevator fight at one point. It's all very well done. The choreography is solid and it's shot fairly well. Obviously, nothing of the craftsmanship of the John Wick movies, but for what it is, it is pretty solidly done and should reliably do the job. Obviously, it's paired up with a score from Joseph Trapanese, who did the score for The Raid 2. Yeah, I think it's safe to say this is not on The Raid 2's level, but he does do a pretty solid job with the score very much. So, serving to enhance the sort of, the stakes and tension of the plot. And it is shot reliably well. Obviously, there's nothing mind blowing here, cinematography wise, so it does sort of suffer that streaming movie thing where, there's sort of not really a lot of flair. But again, it gets the job done. Where I think this really shines is in the acting. Obviously, Viola Davis is a fantastic actress, always gives great performances in everything she's in, and yeah, this is no exception. Yeah, her performance as President Sutton is, incredibly strong. She very reliably commands the film. She has the physicality to carry through the action scenes, but she's an imposing, commanding presence that, she's a hero that is, tough and badass and worth getting behind, but without sort of falling into the obvious sort of, girl boss trap. The film very much, shows why she's worth getting behind through her actions. Viola Davis does it very, very well. And she plays really well off Anthony Starr as Rutledge. I mean, dude is having a blast channeling Hans Gruber by way of Homelander. And it is nice hearing him speak in something closer to his natural New Zealand accent rather than his Homelander American accent. And yeah, he is a cracking villain. Yeah, he's the sort of suave, methodical, intelligent villain at first, which sort of gives way to Homelander-esque fits of psychotic rage. And honestly, when it is you know these two playing off each other and you know butting heads, the film is in its element. It is absolutely electric. And there's some fairly solid supporting performances as well. Yeah, Elizabeth Marvel as Joanne, who's like a sort of close companion of Danielle's, and I very much enjoyed seeing Clark Gregg, Agent Coulson himself, in in a small role as the vice president. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's great. I like him a lot. Yeah, obviously he's great in the MCU, and he's very good here as well. One thing that did surprise me actually is that Danielle's husband is played by the same guy who played the character of Glenn Whitman in the first Michael Bay Transformers film. Yeah, that was a real surprise. Let's be real. The weak link is very much the child acting. It's not the worst, but yeah, it's not great either. But outside the film very much like carries itself along through the strength of Davis and Starr's fantastic performances, as well as again the very entertainingly staged action, as well as and some surprisingly good messages about how disinformation spreads quicker than actual information, and some stuff about how politicians cause division and animosity among the citizens. Again, it's not particularly deep, but it's surprising to see these messages make their way into what is otherwise a kind of switch your brain off action movie. And all this carries it right along to its final act where 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 Sutton and Rutledge come face to face in one last stand. And there's also a twist that, yeah, is pretty predictable. And, the emotional beats, as obvious as they are, do land quite well. Even if the film does end on a kind of abrupt note. But, yeah, for what it's worth, I had a decent time. I don't think it's going to be anything that sticks with me too long, but in the moment, it should satisfy. overall, G20 is the type of film that does exactly what it says on the tin and will likely leave you reasonably satisfied if that's what you're looking for. It's nothing too groundbreaking and, you know, is very much owes a debt to Die Hard, but as knockoffs go, it, it, it does its job. Out of 10, G20 gets a 6. So yeah, let me know down in the comments. Have you seen G20? What did you think of it? Did you enjoy the performances of Viola Davis and Anthony Starr? And what's your favourite Die Hard knockoff? Let me know all that down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new. And don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload.